Hi everybody, welcome to today's webinar. We're going to talk a little bit about CNC Postprocessors in PTC Creo Parametric. I just prepared a few slides before we jump into Creo and into the G-Post stuff. So just a quick agenda for the webinar. So I'll do a quick introduction. Then I'll prepare a few slides on the option file generator. So that's the interface that we'll use for creating your post processors. And then I've also prepared slides on factory interface language, so the full file, and then where to find help and support for the post processors. So just quickly, something about myself. So my name is Pprint. I'm a boundary systems technical specialist. So I've been working with PTC products since 2008. So my specialty areas is Creo manufacturing. I also use smart assembly, and then I specialize in top-down design using Creo Parametric. So boundary systems. So just a quick slide about our capabilities and where we have offices. So we have offices in Cleveland, Ohio. Then I'm based in South Africa, and then we also have a few offices in Europe. So we are part of the PDSVision group of companies. Some of our capabilities, we specialize in product lifecycle management, data management. We also help our customers CAD design and consulting, simulation, product and product development. So some of our major accreditations. So we are a PTC Platinum partner. We also certified Wintel implementers, a PTC service preferred service provider, and then we also provide training in the following work in Creo, Wintel, MathCAD, and Arbortext, which is PTC products. Some of the solutions. So PTC, I think, is the main focus area, but then we also do things like ZWCAD, Moldex 3D, EdRage, Tactron, and Keyshot as well, just to name a few. Okay, so let's jump into our topic for today. And the first slide is just about the option file generator. So I could create many slides about this, but I'm just going to put up the one, and then I'm going to follow a process and work within the option file generator and just talk you guys through all the windows and all the options and all the things that you can follow using the options file generator. The important thing you have to realize now is that this is the interface that you'll use to create your post processor or modify it, and then that's a lot easier than just using like the full language, which will be the next slide, which is a programming language that we use for creating the post processors. So very powerful. You can do really a lot with this. You can do whatever you need to do if you know how to use this. But this is more on the advanced side of things. So I can show you guys a little bit about this. I'm not allowed to share actual full programming with you, but we can discuss that, and I can show you that the new interface or the new option file generator coming with Creo 8 really is powerful, and it will get 90% of the things that you need done in your post processor. It will get that done for you. You just need to know where to go and find that, and then apply that. Once you go out of that spectrum and you need additional things, then you will start looking at your full language, and then you will need a little bit of help and a little bit of support. So there's a few places that you can find certain support and help files. The first one with the most information is on the PTC support page. So as soon as you search for G-Post or anything G-Post related, one of the articles you'll find is the G-Post central page. Once you're in there, there's reference guides, there's beginner training, and there's advanced training material you can download from there. I think it's one Word document and two PowerPoint presentations that you can download and then use that. Then also help documentation in your installation directory. So if you go to common files and into your x86e_win64 gpost folder, there are full manuals in there. Okay, so these are large manuals. They're about 600 pages explaining everything to you. So you should be able to find anything full related or gpost related in there. Then the second point to help you guys getting started with this is default post-processors. So there's two places that you will find that as well. So in that same folder where the help files or the PDFs are default post-processors that's coming with the Creo installation. So these are good starting points. And when we go into the options file generator just now, I'll show you how you can use one of these and then build information into an existing post-processor. But that's the method that I would follow 90% of the time. I'll take a workable post-processor and then I will start modifying that to whatever I need or to whatever a customer needs. So that's the easiest way for me. So default post-processors in the Creo installation folder, and then again, if you go to the PTC support page and you are active on maintenance, you can download a wide variety of post-processors for certain machines. So this is just a quick screenshot of those so that you can see there's 5-axis machines on there. There's normal lathes. I'm not sure about multitask machines. I think there's a Mazak Interex on there as well. So those are all post-processors that you can download and you can use, and then you can modify them as well. Okay, so just quickly before we jump into Creo, so we provide training on 3 different ways nowadays. So one is virtually due to the COVID restrictions. We can also do in-center training and on-site, and this is for gpost as well. So all the PTC products, and then obviously gpost fall under that. That's just my contact details. So if you have to run or something like that during the webinar and you couldn't ask a question, you can just drop me a mail. I'll answer that. If I can't answer it, we have a good team. Somebody in the team will be able to help you. So if you want to take a screenshot of that, you go ahead and do that. Then I can also encourage you guys to use the GoToWebinar interface to ask questions. So ask those questions. I will only answer them after the webinar. So hopefully I answer them during the webinar, but if I didn't, then I will address them afterwards. Okay, so get those questions in as well. Okay, so let's jump into Creo and let's start discussing the post-processor stuff. So I just prepared a really simple component here with a few sequences. So we have a face milling on top, then we clean out some of the edges. We do high speed, more roughing and finishing, and then we drill some holes. So the first thing that I want to show you guys is if you play these tool parts, and this is just a little bit of background information tying up with the post-processor stuff. So this is the language that Creo will output. So you will notice that here's a spindle command. So it's going to switch on my spindle, and it's going to turn the RPM at a certain value that I've inserted, and it's going to go clockwise or counterclockwise depending on my settings. Then it will have a rapid move, then it will have a go-to move, and then it will set the feed rate, and then the go-to will it will go from one point to the next. There's a circle move. So if we play this, you will see the cutter moving at each line. So you can see there's the circle, and that's just basically my facing. So I just wanted to show you this CL data, because this is the data that the postprocessor will take, and it will create your G code or your code for your machine. So if something is missing in here, if it's not here, then the postprocessor don't know what to do with it. If you have a second spindle or a certain rotation that needs to happen for 4 or 5 axis machine, if that command is not in this CL data, then the post don't know what to do with that. So very important to understand, if something is missing in here, then the post don't know what to do with that. Okay. So we're going to keep it very simple today. We're going to work with just a 3-axis machine. I'll show you the interface for the 5-axis machine. But I mean, if we go 4 5-axis turntables, turn heads, things like that, then it can get complicated. So I always encourage the people to reach out to us. That's a lengthy discussion. We need to understand the machine, and then obviously what you want from the post processor, and then we'll take that up on a with the boundary systems to customer discussion. Okay, so let's quickly go down to, let's speed this up. I wanted to show the drilling cycles as well, so because that's normally where things go a little bit wrong. So you'll see here that our last one is a drilling cycle, and it's just calling a cycle, and we call that a major word, and then it's calling drill. So, and then it's going to a certain depth at a certain speed and a certain clearing distance, and then it's going to a different direction as well, and then the cycle off again. So if I change that to a different drilling cycle, so let's just quickly do that so you guys can just get the feeling for what needs to happen. So that's drill, just a normal drill. Let's definition this, and I'm going to adjust this to deep drilling, and we're going to view the code from here. So you can see that cycle changed now. Okay, and there's other parameters in here. So the default option file generator will know that, and it will create a G81 or G83 or whatever you need for those drilling cycles. So that's just a quick example of how the things you do in Creo will affect your post processor. Okay. So in this case, it makes all sense. It's all easy. But as soon as you start working with palette changes and things like that, how do you do that? How do you tell Creo that you need a palette change, for instance? Okay. So then your fill language and things like that will come into play, and you have to program that in. Okay, so let's go and open up the option file generator. So there's 2 ways that you can do that. The easy way is if you go to applications, and you have to be in a manufacturing assembly, and you click on CNC Postprocessor. That's going to be the way to get that going. The problem with this is if you open it like this, you see as soon as I go into the Creo window, I get that Windows wheel, which means I can't do anything in Creo while I'm in this mode. And that's really a painful thing if you start off with post-processor stuff in Creo. So what we do is, when we start working on post-processors, we create a little icon. And I'm just going to show you the details of the icon, and this will open up GPost in a separate window, and it means you can run the post-processor stuff and Creo parallel. So that line there, that's the important bit. That's the batch file that you run, and then you just have that little batch file thing at the end to tell it to run it in a separate window. Okay, so let's do that, and let's start up the option file generator, and then you can notice now I can work in Creo normally. So what this will allow me to do is to actually go and post a file picking a postprocessor while I'm working with the postprocessor at the same time. Right. So you can see there's PO3 and here's PO3 here, so I can open that up. Okay, so that's starting it up, and this is the easiest way to work in both Creo and the options file generator. I'm just going to close that, and let's start with this. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do is you need to decide how do you want to start this whole process. Are you going to build a postprocessor from scratch, which means you will have to edit each and every setting, how your G1s is going to work, how the G2s, 3s, how your drilling cycles is going to work, how the cooling is going to work, all of that, how the X, Ys, and Zs should be shown up in your post file. Do you need line numbers as an example? So all of that you need to know. The easier way to get that going is if you use a predefined postprocessor. So let's quickly go through the options that you have. So this is standard Creo functionality. You have it within your Creo installation. If you have Creo NC, you can do this as well. Well, you can do everything that I'm showing today. So I'm going to create a mill postprocessor. I'm going to say next. You will notice that I've got a different location for my postprocessor. So I have I've set my setting to that default folder. So it's just going to grab all the postprocessors from that one folder that I've specified. Obviously, you can go and you can change that if you need to. I'm going to keep it default for now. Okay, so we're doing a milling postprocessor. It's going to allocate a number 4 to that. So this will be my 4th, but I can also give it a number like 99. There's no limit or between 1 and 99 that you can pick. Obviously, you can't pick something that you already made. So I'm going to stick with 04, and I'm going to go next. And then in this window, you have to decide how do you want to do this. So do you want a default postprocessor? So let's go next. So that's just a default mode. It's supplied by the option file generator. It's basically blank, and you need to go and define everything in there. So not the easiest way, but if you need to do something from scratch, that's the way that you will approach that. A system supply default option. So here we get a little bit more information. So here we can pick, for instance, a Haas control, a Fadal control. So the option file generator has certain templates that it will use for certain machines, and it will only be the basic stuff for that machine. It does not mean you can just pick one of these and go run that machine. You still need to go and test the information, test the data, test the output, check what you have done in Creo. Does it correspond with what you think it should be doing? And then you should have a systematic approach to it. So take one section and then work through it. Fix one problem before you go to the next. Yeah. So we have a few Fanucs in there, Herco. So you can go through this list and then pick one. So let's go for the Haas one for now. I'm going to go next, and then I'm just going to pull this Haas webinar for today, and we're going to go finish. And then we have a default Haas 3-axis postprocessor. Okay, so I forgot to show the one option here. So let's just quickly go to the milling again. I need to change that to 5 now. Existing option file. So you can use one of those defaults that's in the Creo installation folder. So I have a few in there. So all these are in the you can see it in the common files folder. So you can grab one of them and maybe a Haas VF8 and then start up with that one, test that, see how close the code is, and then work with that. Go. So let's cancel that and let's carry on with this one. Okay, so the first few options that you need to set is on top of the priority list. So obviously the type of machine that you need the post processor for, you need to decide that, or you need to know that. So is it just a basic 3-axis milling machine, or is it a 4-axis rotary table? Is it a rotary head? Is it 5-axis with the different configuration? And then if you have like a mill turn machine, then you'll use this setup and then also activate the mill turn mode for that. So you will notice as soon as you select certain options, the option file generator will add tabs here at the top. So that mill turn option, you can see that's turning on and off. Okay, so depending on what you select in this window will determine what you have available in all the other windows when you specify this post processor or when you start building this post processor. So this machine tool type, extremely important. And we always recommend to the customers, if you're going to do this, get this first section right and test a few scenarios with just that, and then start building on top of that. Make sure X, Y, and Z, M values, G values are more or less where it needs to be. Then, if you can't get it or if you can't get the result that you need, then you can start playing around with the full interface with your factory language and your programming. Okay, so the one example that I wanted to show you just quickly is on a 4-axis machine. So if we go to a 3-axis machine, just a normal, you'll notice we've got spec and axis available here. So I'm just going to change that to 4-axis rotary table. And you'll see we have this 4-axis rotary table. So just a quick example of that is if I say my machine is going to rotate about the Y-axis, the machine is going to be like that. If I say, well, my rotation axis is going to be around my Z-axis, then the machine configuration is going to be like that. So just a simple tab like that is critical. So, but 9 out of 10 times the machine will be on the floor. You will have access to it, or you should have a good indication what machine will arrive in a few weeks, and you need to build a post processor for that. So it's basic information, but it is critical. Okay, so let's just do, I think, I do the X-axis. So there's another configuration. So don't worry too much about how the machine sits in this picture. You have to concentrate about where the Z, X, and Y axis is. Okay, and then that will determine where this rotary will be. Okay. So let's go back to a normal 3-axis machine, and let's start working through the tabs. So these motion registers, so should they be modal or not? So this will have a huge influence on your code. Do we need X, Y, and Z or G codes on every line? Let's say, what's a good example? G81 or any code like a G1. I mean, if the machine is all already in rapid motion and it's going from one point to another point, do you need G1s at every line? If the answer is yes, then you tick the boxes for that. Okay. So if we go a little bit to transform and output, so if there's certain translations on your machine that you need to activate, this is where we'll do that. Normally the scale is 1. I don't fiddle around too much with this. This was for all the type machines. Newer ones now, you keep everything scale 1:1 and translations as well. There is still scenarios where you can do that. This is where you will set that. If you're getting into more complex machines, then you will fiddle around with these ones, and as you pick them, they will enable other options. So when you are in these and you're not sure if you should use them or not, there's little notes at the bottom here, but also very important. If you hit F1 or you go to the help file section, that should take you directly to that, and it will give you a little bit of a indication of what that will do and what not. Okay, so use these help files and know your machine. Then you should be able to find the solution in here. So very simple. I'm going to leave that straight. We have planar machining available here. If it's some, or it's not enabled, but the tabs are here. So if you enable that, you can set the settings for this as well. Also, what's nice, and I'm going to show you this for the end and the start of your program, you will see these user blocks in various locations in the option file generator, and this will just allow you to add any lines that you might need. Cancellation lines. If you need to wrap it to a certain height, you can do a G82, for instance, Z0, something like that. That will retract the machine before you do any rotations. So no need for full files for that anymore. A few versions back, you still had to capture that rotation move and then tell GPost, okay, so as soon as you see a multax or rotation, insert these lines. Okay, so try to stay on the latest versions of the option file generator, and you'll have little perks like that where you don't have to use full files anymore. You can just use the user blocks to tell Creo what to do before it rotates a specific axis or if it reaches a certain command. Okay, right angle head, I'm not going to get into that too much. Let's go to file formats. This is also a very important window. So your machine definition. So what type of codes do the post-processor need to use? So are you going to use IJ and K for circular interpolation, or are you going to use R values? So a lot of things that needs to set in here. Well, it needs to be active in here for you to be able to use it. Okay. So default ones is your line numbers, G codes, true length compensation, X, Y, and Z moves, the P value for your dwelling, Q values for your retract heights on your drilling cycles, rapid stops, and then obviously IJ and K for your arc movements, F for your feeds, S for spindles, T to call the correct tool, and then D for cutter compensation, and then obviously M codes to put certain things on and off, like cooling. Okay, so just on the next window, just a quick example of what the output will be. Can you do blank spaces, things like that, and then the file type. So the default Creo will output TAP files, TAP files. If you need something else, then you can do that. You can give it an extension of NC or which one is it? The Fadal that needs a certain extension. So you can put that. and you can type in anything here. So if you need a specific file extension, that's where you will change that. Okay. So this has been part of the option file generator for a while now, but in earlier versions of Wildfire, you did not have this window. You had to tell the option file generator with full commands to output a certain file type. Okay. So I'm going to use the default tab file, and so just the list file. So this is what the name that you will see when you go into Creo. So I'm going to run this postprocessor just now, and I'm going to show you in the message window if you have multiple postprocessors where you can pick that up. Okay, so before we go any further into the sequence numbers and things like that, let's quickly save this post. So it's post number 4. It's going to save it into my default directory, and let's just quickly run and look at the code that we will get. So I'm just going to grab all of this. I'm just going to say save machine file, and then I'm going to call it that file webinar. Just want to grab that part. I'm not sure if I'm in the right one, so it's okay. So it's going to ask me what postprocessor do I have. So you can see my default ones in there. There's a Makino A55, a Haas, or not a Haas, MA50 HB, and then the one that we used. So just keep an eye here on the message window. As soon as I highlight it, that's going to change. That's the one that I've just made, the Haas control webinar one. So I'm just going to pick that. So you see this one is asking me for program number. So I can put in the program number. Okay, so we don't have any warnings at this moment, which means our drilling cycle, things like that, should be okay. Normally it will give an error there if there's something wrong. So let's go and open up our tab file. That was in webinar data. So here's the tab file that we've opened. Let's just look at the coding here. Okay, so it gave the program number, the 0456, and I think that's a prerequisite for Haas. It's grabbing the first tool, M06 for that. There's my spindle. Okay, so it rounded that off. If you can remember, we had some weird number in there. Then it's doing a G0 move, so it's going to wrap it to there. A Z height. Okay, and then it's going to move G1, and then there's a G2 move. Okay, and it's outputting I and J values for that, so it's not a R value. Okay, and 3, and we sort of know about that. And we can go through the code, and it looks fairly good for 3-axis machine. The first one is up and down all the time. It's got some small Z moves here. Okay, not ideal. Let's go to the bottom. Let's just check that drilling. Okay, so these are G83. It's giving us a Q value. So if that's part of the sample code that you have with the or what you tested on the Haas machine, then that's fine. So we're just drilling in this or a little bit off center. Okay, then we cancel everything. Then we're ending the machine with just a retracting to Z56, and it's turning the machine off. Okay, so that's just giving us a good indication of where we are. Okay, so I didn't like these small Z moves, so fairly difficult to tell where we are. So we need a little bit of extra things in here. So you can add Pprint functionality. So let's quickly go to Creo and see if we did put that in. So I mean, if we don't output it in the Creo data, then the post-processor don't know what to do with it. So you can see we don't tell it where the next operation is. So just loading the next tool, which makes it a little bit difficult. So let me show you how you can add that in, just to make your life a little bit easier. And that's on the machine definition file, on the parameters, Pprint, and then we can decide what information we want to output to that CL file. And the one that I'm looking for is you can do the tool name, tool comments, let's see, where's the sequence type. That might be a good one. Set that to yes. Let's do the tool name. I'm not sure if I added that into the tool comments. Okay, but you'll get the field. So any of these you can just set to yes, and that's going to output that. So let's save that. So you can save those as files, and then if you work on a machine and you need different things in there, you can just retrieve that, and then it will output that. So let's play this part again. Just have a look at what we have in the CL data now. So it's just regenerating all the tool parts. So you can see we have this Pprint in here now, sequence type. So that's the face milling. The tool name is tool 1 face. And then if you scroll down a little bit, where's the other ones? I know the drilling is at there. So Pprint hole making, okay, and the tool name. So let's output this and see if we get a different result. So I'm going to override that webinar one. So I didn't make any changes to the post-processor file. I'm going to give it a different number. Still no warnings. It's going to ask me to update it because I've created a new tab file. And let's see. So now we know that the Pprint stuff is enabled in this post-processor because it's giving me the sequence name and the tool name. So that's just making it a little bit easier to troubleshoot this file. Oops, I'm just gonna take that sequence type, copy that, paste that in there, find next. So there's the trajectory milling. So I can check that code. Still have to look at those Z values. Is it something in the post or is it something in Creo? There's a roughing. We still get that Z values that's close to each other. Okay. So by looking at this output now, it's very easy to know that this post will get me somewhere close to my end result. Okay. So let's just go and do something different. Let's go back and we create a new post. I'm milling one again. I'm going to call this A6. This time I'm going to use an existing one from Creo. And I'm going to use this Haas DF8. Call it Haas DF8 webinar again. Okay. So So we just check, well, we're going to work with a 3-axis machine. We don't transform or change the scale or anything like that. We're not going to do planar machining. Let's just quickly have a look at these output files. So we have line numbers in here. We have the Q value, tool heights, diameter compensation active, and we've got the dwell in there. Okay, we're using I and J again. We've got the webinar sequence numbers. It's going to go in increments of 1. Okay, so we can just let's go to the start program. So so we're not outputting the program numbers in here. I want to add something to the end of the program and the start of the program. So let's call it, I'm just going to type in values. Obviously, you need to type in something here that makes sense. I just want to show you where you will do that. You can have as many lines as you like, and then type in G values, or it's just the text that you enter. So make sure if you're doing M or G values that you have the correct values. Just going to say start, and then the end I wanted to say end. Okay, so that's just the general output. Default prep codes. So as you start with this, you need to set the units. Should it be the same as the input file? So whatever you're programming in Creo, metric or inches, it's going to use that. But then the values that you specify in the option file generator is also important. So you have to decide how you're going to put that. Is it going to be inches or metric? If you specify values, or if you use it in a certain mathematical formula, you need to set those values, and that's what it's going to use for that. Okay. So it's going to use the units from the CL file, but then the values that you input into this option file generator, you need to specify as well. Okay, then we've set our start and end. Okay, and then let's just quickly test this before we go to our motion, because that's the next critical one. Okay, so let's quickly test that. So that's the post number 6. And to make sure we're running the latest. Yeah, so I'm just going to output this quickly. I'm just going to say this is a horse F8 one. It's in the same folder. I'm going to use 6. You can notice in the message window at the bottom, that's showing the one that I've just created. Let's grab that. This one is not prompting for a program number, and that's because of this tick box. So as soon as we set that, then it's going to ask us for a program number. Okay. So let's keep that off for now. Let's close this and let's open up that file we just created. So it's also outputting a tab file. Let's open that up. And you can see an immediate difference. The line numbers is different. There's no spaces in between the values. If we run that next to each other, you'll notice the one on the right is the one we've done with the default Postprocessor, and then the one is that we've copied from. Okay, so that's just the message that I want to leave you guys with. That use the correct one, do a few quick tests, and then start playing around in the Postprocessor environment. Okay, so the next option would be, or the next tab would be your motion. Do you want to output repeat points? That's the options for that. The G code for linear moves, standard is G1 now, but you can change that. Is it modal, yes or no? Do you want them in one block? Should it be separate blocks? That's where you adjust that. For all your rapid moves, all the settings around that. If you're working with a 4 or 5 axis machine, how do you want to handle the X and Y, X, Y, and Z movements? How do you want to output that? X, Y, then rotary, then Z, or do you want X, Y, rotary, or something else? Do you want to do the rotary first, which is dangerous depending on where your tool is? Unless you retract before every rotary move, then that option is fine. So it all depends on what you want to do, and all the things that you've adjusted before you get to this in this machine tool type, and the start and end and the file formats, your start and end things. That all will contribute to what the settings you set in here. Okay. How do you want to set your circular output? IJ and K values. Do you want to output the R value? How do you want to handle that R value depending on the arcs sizes and the arc degrees? So these are all settings that you can set. Okay, so I can show you this stuff the whole day. It might be applicable to you or not. So I'm just going to show this, and then if you need more information on that, use the help files. It's going to go to that. It's going to tell you what to set and how it will influence the code. So use that, and then obviously we are support there as well, so you can use us as well. Just a quick one on the cycles. Okay, so there's our Q and our P values that we have to set for that. So our multi-axis option is that's just when you're using 4-axis machine, how do you want to rotate that? So if you need to manipulate the code. These are fairly standard now because we're working on an existing postprocessor. The next important one is the machine codes, so prep codes. So here's the cycle. So remember I used that one in the Creo example, where it will output just G81 for a normal drill, but if you output cycle deep, then it's outputting G83s. So this is an example of where you will set that. Okay, what modes do we need? So that's also modes that you can set in Creo, and then it will grab the correct G90 or G91. M codes, stop codes, end codes, rewind codes, you can set that. If you have clamping available on the machine, you pick that. What's the code for unclamping? Do you have codes for each axis, or do they use a universal code? Same for clamping as well. Cutter compensation. Okay, so this can also get a little bit tricky in older days, and you will notice some of the old fault codes. If you go look in there, they still had that programmed in there. You don't have to do it in there anymore. You can do cutter compensation within this interface now. Coolant settings. Here's all your coolant settings. What M codes should we use for what type of settings in Creo? So keep in mind now, if you go to Creo, we could go in there. And let's just take the face milling. So the coolant, that's the pressure. That's the normal one. That's the feature offset coolant option. There we go. Mist on tap through spindle. So you'll notice that those, depending on what you set in here, will output that specific code. Okay, so you have to set the things in Creo and then test the code that it's going to output for you. Feed rate settings. This is where you will set all of that. Feature offsets. This is the window for that. And then also a big one that a lot of the guys normally change is the tool change sequence. So also again, we have user blocks, which is nice, where you can specify what output do you want before a tool change. Do you want the machine to retract before every tool change, maybe to inspect the tool, or for whatever reason to pull out of the job properly and then do the tool change. That's where you will set that. So once again, it's the same interface. You type in lines in here, whatever you like, and make sure it's commands that's going to make sense to the machine. Spindle, there we go for the spindle settings, fairly basic. We don't fiddle much around with this. Normal stuff, clockwise M3, counterclockwise M4, and then the default is going to be 3. So if Creo can't find, or if the postprocessor can't find a rotation, then it's going to output the M3. I'm going to jump to the advanced tab because this is where we'll do all your full editing. So you can write your full stuff in here. You can copy and paste from default postprocessors and things like that. You can put that in here. What's nice about this, it's got this color scheme. You can do the same within a note editor like Notepad++ or just normal Notepad or WordPad. You can do that. Yeah. And then I'm just going to give you one tip on the full stuff. So if you go to the default stuff in Creo, so let's go into our Creo installation folder. Bear with me, I've got a lot of stuff in here, a lot of Creo versions. There's our GPost folder. And you will notice that all these full files got a F number. So if you open that in Notepad+, you will, that's not a great example. Let's try a different one. One with some full in it. Let's see if we've got, there we go. So some of these full files already have full samples in them, or full commands that they use. So you can go and reuse those. Use them as a learning curve, investigate them, see what they will do. Don't fiddle around with the production full editor. Use these as learning things. Fiddle around with them, output the code. Don't run it on the machine. Just look at it and check your output. And that's sort of how I learned a few years ago, playing around with this default stuff and then reusing them and manipulate them and see what the output will be. And then obviously playing around with the or reading up on the full manuals as well. That's also available. I'm going to open that one up quickly to show you. So that's the latest one. It's about 260 something pages. And then you can go and see examples of full commands. Okay, so that's a really tough topic to discuss in an hour webinar. So I'm going to wait for the questions. I don't see anything in the GoToWebinar questions box. So if you have any questions, quickly drop those in there. I'm going to mute myself for a second or two. And while I do that, I'm going to put up my contact details again if you want to reach out via email. Okay, I'm going to give you guys a few minutes for some questions. Okay, so I don't have any questions in the inbox. If you are still typing them in, just give me some sort of indication. If not, then I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar. And thank you for joining us for today.